This is not looking sure. Very good afternoon to one and all present here. We are going to discuss a very new topic related to development. So we are going to focus on women in development. Okay. So we'll be discussing on what areas it has been not discussed or what kind of issues that needs to be addressed. So in this particular discussions, we are going to analyze and discuss. So I'm going to share the screen. Okay. So as you can see in the screen, so this particular topic deals with women in development. Okay. So as we discussed in the previous session that environment and that eco-feminism or green feminism, they were discussing relating to environment and how the dominant paradigm has not covered or has completely ignored to address issues related to nature and women. Okay, so in this particular, we are going to relate those concepts at the same time how important it is to address women needs and their concerns. Okay, and then talking about that structural domination. Okay. Because when we were discussing the dominant paradigm, it was mostly designed for men to take part in economic activities, rather than women should go out and contribute to the growth of the economy. Okay, though this particular notion talks about why they have not considered women as one of the most important source in terms of fulfilling the needs and requirements of the society. Okay, so their concerns and problems were not addressed properly. So when it comes to trying to relate with the elevation of poverty or eradication of poverty, they started finding out the importance of women's role as well. Okay, so in this particular lesson, we are going to discuss different approaches to how we can address to women issues. So many government as well as non-governmental organizations has used these approaches to address the very problem that comes or that faced by the women. Okay, so this women and development, the modernization paradigm has completely neglected the focus on other important social intersections and areas, particularly in gender and environment. Okay, so gender and environment plays a key role in terms of overall development. Okay, so development means that we cannot ignore one section of the society. It has to be inclusive for everyone. Okay, so certain times you will find that even these models, when scholars or economists were coming up with different topics or their concerns related to gender, it has been criticized because one will come up with a concept or model or certain programs, then another sections of the scholars, economists will refute those ideas. Okay, so there will always be criticism. So likewise in the previous session related to sustainable development, we have also seen arguments related to that Brundtland report, as well as there are environmentalists who are challenging to the concept of sustainable development, right? So radical environmentalists, they were coming up or supporting with the idea that there should be a stringent population control. Okay, so they have come up with different measures in order to control the population growth. Okay, it's very radical in nature, but at the same time, it also, to some extent, addresses the issues. Okay, so this most of the concerns addressed by the feminists or from the environmental perspectives has not been able to address effectively. Okay, so maybe a lot of criticisms from the male-dominated counterparts. Okay, because you have to understand that who are the decision makers. As we are aware that women participation in political as well as social processes, movement is very less as compared to men, right? So men were only deciding what is good for the society, okay? And there we will also find in the 70s and 80s that men, especially in the international bodies or organizations, they are refuting to the ideas that women should also be equivalent to men. Okay, so because for example, here the head of the father, head of the family is usually the father, right? So father in Indian society also, they always have the final say, right? They always take the decision. So they will hear your versions, everything, or your opinions and viewpoints, but who is the one who's deciding everything, right? So in a male-dominated society like India or anywhere else, okay, even modernization or this dominant paradigm talks about how male, especially patriarchal, it has a lot of patriarchal biases, and the foundation itself is on the basis of patriarchal system. Okay, so everything that has come forward when these models were designed, it's mainly for men. Okay, completely excluding women as part of the contributors. Okay. So the debate emerged, or the discussion when it started, it was basically begin with the fact that women are the reproducers. Okay, they are something related to childbearing, okay, and nurturing and caring and nothing else. Okay, even if their participation in agriculture is predominant, okay, they used to participate in agriculture, farmings, or any sort of activities related to production. Okay, but their contribution has not been observed, has not been taken into account. Despite the fact that in sub-Saharan countries also, in African countries, you will find that 80% of the women, they used to work in farms and they used to contribute. What happened? They used to contribute to the agricultural produce, but at the same time, their functions and the roles have been overlooked. Okay, so meaning that the people who are deciding and what do you say? For example, if they are assisting this group of women farmers, assisting the male farmers. Okay, so you have seen, because we have all come from the agricultural state, right? And India predominantly it is agriculture nation as well. So we have also seen in our localities that women folks, they also go and do the farming, right? They help the male counterparts in order to make it successful in terms of harvesting and then other stuffs. Okay, so in that also, despite their contributions, it's been overlooked. Okay, so whatever in terms of development, where women were not being considered as one of the key factors. Okay, only things are getting more serious is that when more scholars started examining what could be the other factors relating to development in terms of solving problems related to poverty or eradication of poverty programs. Okay, so if the family as a structure, or if the country is not providing that environment where everyone has equal access to opportunities, everyone or there are a lot of factors related to inequalities, then it more, what is it? It brings more effects, negative impacts to women. Okay, women are what do you say? They are more prone to in terms of getting those setbacks rather than men. Okay, and then there was a demarcation of what type of jobs will be performing by the genders. So gender roles. Okay, for example, male will be going out and taking part in economic activity as wage laborers or as a in terms of it could be mining, it could be agriculture, or any industry or factories. Okay, but on the other hand, what women are doing, they're taking care of the families, at the same time taking care of the entire household. Okay, so they may be going to the agriculture also, but that was not accounted. Okay, so here when reports and data or statistics are showing that according to 2013 report of UNDP, it's United Nations Development Program, Human Development Report 2013 also talks about that, that still gender inequalities in access to most basic needs as well as political and organizational access is very limited, or there's no, what do you say, you can say the disparity is very high when it comes to male accessibility to political as well as organizations. Okay, so you will find that the reports, for example, when we are trying to assess the contributions of women in the organizational sector or in terms of economic activity or political participation, we have also seen that the ratio of women, or the percentage of representation of women as the decision makers or the leaders of that organization is very minimal. Okay, so minuscule figure is present. Okay, so more participation of women, and there's no gender disparities. The women can take part in political decision making process, or in terms of family making decisions in family. Okay, so all these aspects are taken into account when we're trying to assess how women are empowered. Okay, so if they're able to take decisions, if they're self-reliant in terms of financial or social mobility, then we can also to somewhat assess that they are kind of empowered, right? So and this particular report also shows that there is still disparities among men and women in terms of political and organizational access. Okay, and then one more thing you can understand here is that in terms of access to education also, if we check enrollment of female students, you will definitely find that it is very low if you compare with male and female. So girls enrolling in schools will be relatively low as per the data. Okay, so upon not only that, also getting technical training. Okay, technical education in terms of understanding computers or ICTs or any technical line. Okay, so you will find that less women will be enrolling into these particular programs or subjects. Plus, rights to land also not given. So the law of the land, the constitution or the law has given opportunities or scope for women to fight for their land. Okay, like the private property or inheritance of property. It just started. Okay, so earlier you will find that they don't have any rights to have land. Okay, so all these factors definitely leading to what? That widening the gap between men and women in terms of getting access to opportunities and resources, since they are not educated enough. Plus, even if they are educated also, there's always disparities in terms of income. Okay, for example, same qualification, men and women having the same candidate. Okay, the candidates are having same qualification, experience, everything. But then again, when they are into the workforce, the wage, okay, the wage or the pay they receive will be different. Okay, so there is no equal pay for equal work. But the constitution is saying that it should be equal pay for equal work. But in real sense, you will find that there's a lot of disparities. For example, especially when it comes to unskilled laborers, wage laborers. Okay, So per day they're getting even 250, even if they're getting, then the female will be getting 230. Okay, I'm just giving you a hypothetical example. It actually happens. Okay, so they will get less, like 10 rupees, 50 rupees, okay, lesser than what the male is, the counterpart is getting. Okay, so you will find a lot of things have been completely ignored in terms of determining the development process. Okay. Now it's just the new phenomenon after seeing that dominant paradigm that we have been talking about. It's not addressing the problems of women. It's not addressing the concerns related to women. So now there's a need to come up with an alternative ways to solve this problem. Okay. So now they started talking about women. Okay. And then in the 1970s onwards, you will find discourse related to WID. WID means Women in Development. It will just start to opening. Okay. 60s it have already started, but in 70s they have actually started working on how to include women in development. Okay. So, for example, you will find that 1975 to 85, United Nations has dedicated the entire decade for women. Okay, so Decade for Women has been actually announced from 1975 to 85. So that way, the visibility of women in development has come into existence. Otherwise, it was not visible at all. Here and there, some discourses were happening. Then female economists, for example, you have this Bostrup's Women's Role in Economic Development, talks about situations, women's status in sub-Saharan African countries. Okay, so with this particular book, they have started talking about the importance or significance of women's role in development. Okay. Otherwise, in the 60s also, they have just started opening with the discourse itself, but not in that crucial manner wherein the United Nations or the international bodies, your central government or state governments, NGOs should be tackling this issue. Okay. So you will, in this particular, I'll just go according to the slides. So women also constitute the vast majority of unpaid family workers. So this is again one of the findings related to UNDP. So development planners assume that men perform all productive work, which completely ignoring women's productive role, especially in agriculture. So development planners, according to policymakers and development planners, they they were of the opinion and assuming that men perform all productive roles. Okay, productive roles meaning that contributing something to the society or the economy. Okay, completely ignoring the fact that women also contributed to this productive role. Okay, especially when it comes to agriculture. Okay, because during that time in third world countries, you will find that agrarian the economy was the foundation of all the economy. Okay, because technology was in fact introduced by Western models in order to modernize the countries, right? Developing or developed countries, underdeveloped countries. So it was completely ignoring the productive roles related to women when it comes to agriculture. Okay, so one of the most remarkable juncture you can see is when Esther Bostrup, she's a Danish economist. So she has written a book on women's role of economic development. Okay, so in this particular book, demonstrated the failure to account for the productive roles performed by women, especially in agriculture. Okay, she has highlighted mainly focusing on women's productive role in agriculture. Okay, then due to the introduction of cash economies, increased women's workload in terms of taking care of family, in terms of taking care of the farms also. So both things have increased. Because why? Because men are going for work. They are moving outside the house, and then they have started joining industries. They have started joining factories and working as a wage labor in cities or in the mines. Okay, so likewise, their workload has also increased. But then again, it was overlooked, despite the fact that they have to do their household work, they have to take care of the families, nurture their families, their children, at the same time take care of the farms and agricultural lands. But then again, their work has been completely ignored and overlooked. Okay, so the kind of findings or the suggestions that Esther Bostrup gave in her research is that she called for an inclusion of women in development activities as producers and contributors to the economy. So she calls the attention of the policymakers and development planners to make sure, to ensure that there should be an inclusion of women in development activities. Okay, as producers, not as reproducers. Reproducers, they were more inclined towards the biological aspects of women. Okay, and then when modernization paradigm also talks about it, the duality. For example, one is the feminine aspects of women, that they are very nurturing, they are emotional, and they have inclinations towards feelings and emotions. Only pertaining to that aspects, they were looking into the whole idea of women. Okay, and at the same time, they were also one of the aspects is that there was a rise or increase in technology and innovations. Okay, so both things were happening. When the dominant paradigm started, that time also more innovation, sharing of ideas, technology, innovations, all these things were kind of like a movement. On the other hand, if you look into the women aspects, you can see that they have been looked upon as one as a caring or that emotional aspects. Okay, so that particular notion only created problems, because since they considered as they are not involved in productive roles. Okay, so they are more focusing on the as an aspect wherein women are the only meant for reproduction. Okay, so the whole idea of reproduction has been associated when the whole debate of women in development started. Okay, only from the aspects of reproductive roles. Okay, so that reproductive roles you will find in many campaigns in India also, family planning related. Back in Doordarshan days also, we could see only family planning, PSS. Okay, and then any posters, billboards you see, it's all about family planning. So women are mostly like considered as a reproductive role. So more public campaigns will be based on family plannings, and then health-related issues for women. Okay. Apart from that, it's not like promoting them to work. Okay. So likewise, you can also cite a few examples related to that. Okay. So she has talked about the failure related to account for productive roles of women. Okay. At the same time, you will also find some of the criticisms of Bostrup's work that is based on 2 points. So in critics have countered that only emphasis is given on women, not all marginalized individuals. Okay, so there are some other sections of the society also who have been marginalized. For example, scheduled castes or scheduled tribes, or the people belonging to poverty, below the poverty line, or untouchables. Okay, or those who are not able to be part of the particular system that is functioning right now. So the disparity is so much. So marginalized individuals were not taken into account when Boström was working on this particular research. Okay, only focusing on women. So one of the criticism is based on its emphasis on women and not taken that's marginalized individuals into account. Others, okay. But anyway, in developing countries, women are also considered. Certain sections of women are also considered as marginalized sections. Okay. So another criticism is somewhat related to development with economic development. Okay. So here also, Esther Boström is talking about development from the perspectives of economic development only, nothing else. It could be, because we can look into development from various perspectives, right? As we moved on, as we have seen problems related to development, it could be cultural related issues, it could be economy, it could be political, because women are not participating in political decision making, it could be one of the factors, right? But for this particular work done by Boström, it's only highlighting the problems related to economic development. Okay, so it's more like she just wants women to be considered as productive roles also, like they are contributing to the economy. Okay, so her emphasis on that particular issue. Okay, so here we'll just look into some of the policies by Caroline Moses. Okay, so Caroline Moses, she has done a lot of work in terms of public policy, then urban sociology, and in terms of gender analysis. So she has come up with 5 policy approaches to women and development. Okay, so these approaches, all these 5 approaches are being used by governments, okay, all across the nations, then the non-governmental organizations also in order to address problems related to women and development. Okay, so the first approach is called welfare approach. So what do you think of this particular approach? Abba, what do you think? What might be about like this particular approach talks about? Okay, anyone else? Any virtual students? Welfare approach to development? Living conditions? Yeah, so overall development, right? And then it is considering more about how to give an impetus to the overall welfare of women. So it could, this particular approach also started out with that productive roles of women. Okay, so we'll just look into that. Equity approach. Yes, equal status, because equity talks about equality, okay, in terms of accessing to opportunities, or in terms of accessing to all, like whatever gender, there should not be any disparities between male and female. Anti-poverty approach. This is important. This is important from your perspectives of sustainable development approach. Efficiency approach. So this is somewhat related to equity. Empowerment approach, again, it talks about being self-reliant. Okay. Could be political decision making or economic decision making. Okay. So we'll just look into this welfare approach. Okay, so here you can see that it is considered to be the oldest and the most popular. Okay, so you have come across concepts such as welfare economy. Okay, so in welfare economies, what it talks about is that inclusion for everyone to get access to opportunities. Okay, be it in terms of decision making for strategies and programs and projects. So the welfare approach definitely it aims to help the most vulnerable groups in consumption with the financial aid assistance, okay, to stimulate economic growth. Okay, so they will target or they will ensure that the most vulnerable groups of the society will be given financial assistance to make sure that they are able to take part in the economic activity, and this will in turn stimulate the economic growth. Okay, so this particular welfare approach, it will also give importance to capital intensive industrial and agricultural production, as well as employment create on for men. So in this approach, women are considered a vulnerable group along with elderly as well as handicapped. So they are kind of compared, they are considered equally to the sections of people who are not able to work. For example, elderly people or senior citizens, we consider that they are not actively participating in terms of economic activity, right? They are not contributing much to the society. And in some other, like when some countries, especially in the, I think in Arctic side or the Greenland, okay. So the weather condition is very harsh, right, out there, winters, and then there's a scarcity of food also. So they completely rely on the animals and hunting down animals, and then they give it for a long period of time, and then they consume it. Okay. So in that kind of societies, what happens is that the elderly people, the senior people who are not able, who are not capable enough to contribute for anything, okay, for household or anything, they are being killed, okay, and it's a part of the culture itself, because food scarcity is so much that they don't want any, what do you say, anyone who is not doing much should get the share. Okay. So in the harsh conditions, harsh decisions are being taken by these people. So completely depends on the kind of region. And geography also plays an important role in coming up of, what do you say, the laws, the norms and values, traditions, culture of a particular society, right? It plays a very important role. Okay. So welfare approach here, considering women as a vulnerable group, and it kind of links with the elderly as well as handicapped, meaning that they are not doing anything much, right? They're not productive. So the whole idea is that these marginalized groups or vulnerable groups, they are, what do you say, they are to be taken care, okay, by providing financial assistance, taking extra attention from the ministers or pertaining to welfare, then small NGOs and the group of individuals are taking care of the vulnerable sections, okay, the women especially. So according to Caroline Moser, this approach is based on three assumptions. One, these women are passive recipients of development. Okay, so they are not active recipients. They are passively, they are indirectly getting the benefits of development. So mostly development programs or strategies are not designed for them. Okay, so the passive recipients of development, motherhood is the most important role for women, and child rearing is the most effective task of women. So again, the whole concept related to the nurturing and reproduction. Okay, so the welfare approach talks about that they are vulnerable because they are not productive. They are just occupying in the between the four walls. Okay, and at the same time, their role is to be a mother. Okay, and then take care of the children. So that's how welfare approach talks about it. And then this also, with this particular view, family is taken as one of the most important unit or an institution. Okay, so now relating to that reproductive role, and then and the men in terms of considering as a productive roles. Okay, so with that whole idea of Bostrom's work related to productive role versus reproductive role. So welfare approach also talks about this particular approach or this particular idea. Okay, so therefore it means that the government, whether central or state government or NGOs, are taking care of the vulnerable people, especially women, because their key contribution is in terms of family. Okay, and nothing else. So they are giving financial assistance because they have been associated with family. Okay, since time immemorial, you will find that when hunting and gathering society back then itself, women used to stay at home, and then male used to go out, hunt and bring the food, right? And then lot of concepts related to sociology, anthropology, is how the concept of private property also comes into play. Okay, then how this hunting and gathering society evolves, and then we call as a family as a unit. It keeps on evolving, right? So when we were discussing about coming out of urban centers in the dominant paradigm, also we have seen that a lot of changes. So migration concept also came into play. People have a lot of mobility in terms of movement, and they're coming to the urban centers to work and live in search of opportunities, right? So in this particular welfare approach talks about providing assistance to women. Okay. So one of the criticisms related to this is that it is considered to be its characterization of women as the problem, and its assumption that in order to solve the problem, it is enough to influence the comportment of women rather than discuss their roles. Okay. So one of the principal defect of this welfare approach is that it assumes that the kind of characters of women, or the kind of the features as in not the physical or biological, but in terms of how people perceive women. Okay, so from the feminine aspects also we perceive women. So here it's more about the characterization of women rather than talking about the roles they perform. Okay, as an individual. So this is not being covered. So this is one of the criticism. So the approach also has tended to create dependency on the part of women rather than support their independence. Okay. So here the point is that it kind of creates dependency on women rather than supporting or empowering them to become independent. Okay. So they're just giving financial assistance to make sure that their status is little uplifted, okay, or improved. But then again, they're not considering the whole independence aspect or self-reliance. Okay, so this is another criticism related to welfare approach. But then again, it is one of the most popular approach used by the governments and NGOs. Okay, and why? Because it does not challenge the status quo. So status quo is something that is existing. The system is existing, and then people do not want to change it. Okay. For example, right now the system that we see, okay, it is going on in terms of whether it's how democratic we are electing people. Okay. But then again, if nobody challenges, for example, the Farm Bill, lot of challenges, lot of, what do you say, protest is happening right now, right? So the farmer communities are itself challenging to the fact that this is not, what you say, right for the community, for the farmers community. Okay. Otherwise, if they accept it, then it will go. Right. They're not challenging the existing system, the existing political systems or the economic system. This is about economic system, right? Introducing a new farm bill, making amendments, and then 3-4 amendments are given there, and that's how they're trying to, what do you say, benefit group of people, right? So the farmers are challenging the status quo. So here, welfare approaches, it does not challenge us because women are not fighting as such. Okay, women are not fighting for their, what do you say, liberation or anything. Whether they are fighting for their rights to educate, right to have their own private property or land, they're not fighting. Only they're providing. The government and NGOs are providing welfare benefits to them so that they can access to health or sanitation. For example, a small dispensary or a small health center has been opened nearby, and then some ASHA workers are also involved in that, and they are educating the women from that particular village or the region. Okay, so that's how they're providing welfare schemes. So that's how they're trying to make women as part of the development. Okay, so welfare approach is one way of doing that. Equity approach, this is more of Western approach. Okay, Western feminist approach. So they want equal status. Equity means I'm also asking for the same right as men in everything they do, whether it's work, whether it's political accessibility, whether participation in political process or anything. Okay, so in every aspect, equity approach talks about that women are fighting. Women want the same treatment, same that opportunity as given to men. Okay, so this particular approach is the original women in development approach. Okay, so it was kind of like a backlash against the welfare approach that we have just stopped. Okay, so it emphasizes on certain areas where the critical role of women in development process as the participatory status. Okay, so they are participating in the growth of the economy, in growth of every aspect of life. Okay, so this is more about what do you say? Reducing the inequality between men and women, especially when it comes to division in terms of sex. Okay, so sexual division of labor should be reduced. Okay, so if I want to be the leader of the organization, I should have equal access. I should have equal access to education, to the system, to the kind of workforce it is. So this particular approach talks about that reduction of inequality that was existing in that particular period. Okay, so anything, because the whole idea is that approaches are not fragmented or it's single out. Okay, so it can be combined to make sure that the government or NGOs are getting the most or maximized benefits. So you can integrate welfare approach as well as equity approach. Okay, so but one of the distinct criticisms related to equity approach is that it is only meant for Western feminist aspect. Okay, or women in Western and developed societies. So this is not very much appropriate for any developing countries, because the whole this scenario is different, because women getting education itself is a big question in developing countries where limited resources are there, only basic needs, fulfilling the basic needs itself is a struggle. So in that particular countries, these kind of asking or demanding for equal status, it's a what do you say? It's a fantasy, right? So this particular equity approach is basically meant for developed countries, not for developing countries, wherein the status of women itself is very low. Okay, so this is one of the um, approach, and it is again focusing on the third world women's organizations or third world countries. Okay, anti-poverty approach. This is the second women in development approach. Okay, so anti-poverty approach again talks about economic inequality of women. So women and men, not to subordination, but to poverty, and therefore it gives more equity or issues to development. So this is more like in order to address poverty issues, in order to make sure that everyone in your family is getting some income or generating income um, in order to fulfill the needs, basic needs. So here this particular anti-poverty approach targets or try to emphasize that women should start working. Women is considered to be a product as a productive, what do you say, having a productive role. Okay. So in this particular approach, the basic needs are fulfilled by doing productive work. Okay. So here you will find that they will try to focus on the inequality of men and women aspect, because they need to understand people who are trying to use this approach, whether government or NGOs, they need to address that yes, there is inequality among women and men. But then again, if they take part, if both the parties take part in developing process, especially what do you say, individuals, for example, family as a unit, if they have to grow, then both the parties, both the male and female, if they work, then maybe the family will uplift. Okay, in terms of economy, in terms of what do you say, in terms of fulfilling their basic needs. Okay, so this approach emphasizes on the productive role of women and works to increase their employment and income generating opportunities. So you will find that women are given equal opportunity. For example, 100 days job scheme, right? You're aware of that, right? So in that also, you as a member of the family can also take part. Okay, and then you'll be able to generate few amount of money. Okay, then this could be, you can also talk about that self-help groups wherein women folks, they gathered in a particular spot, and then they started doing small enterprises. They do startup, they make something which can actually convert it into money. Okay, so that's how you can also draw these examples when we're talking about anti-poverty approach. Okay, so critics related to this approach is coming from various areas, including local governments, feeling that it is kind of threatening because they prefer, because I told you earlier that male are dominating in terms of decision making, whether it's in a government office, you will see that mostly males are the directors, they are the decision makers, they are the head of the administration, right? So they are feeling threatened. If women are starting to participate in economic activity and started generating income, then what will happen to the family? Okay, who will take care of the household? So the question is also based on that. So, so one of the critics related to that is that modifications in sexual divisions of labor and prefer to address women through the household. So they prefer women to remain at home and then take care of the family. Okay. So here another critique from other areas that women's reproduction roles are being ignored when it comes to anti-poverty approach. Okay, so this is not particularly addressed when, because if women started working, then uh, the lifestyle also changes. Their aim and ambition will also be different, right? So if they're at home, then the whole, what do you say, thinking process will also be different. So if this particular approach has not addressed the problems related to reproduction growth, they are only emphasizing that women should go out and work and try to generate income so that the family can fulfill the basic needs. Okay, so it's more like male, female, both are working. Okay, so I'll go to another one, efficiency. This is somewhat related to the equity approach. Okay, so the efficiency, this is particularly dominated in today's time, this particular approach. Okay, so this emphasizes on the development and looks at women as underutilized human resource. So now they want to, now they are coming to an approach wherein they started feeling, the policymakers and development planners, they started feeling that there's a need, there's a need to harness their potential, their capabilities, their skills, their talents in order to bring, what do you say, development. So underutilized human resource has to be tapped, has to be exploited or harnessed in order to bring development. So in this efficiency approach, it talks about how efficient an individual is. So now they are focusing more on the kind of work that an individual, whether you're male or female, but is more focusing on women, right? So women's, for a long period of time, their resource, their capabilities has not been exploited, has not been used. So now they are feeling that it is high time for them to use their potential in order to bring development. Okay, so you will see more economic participation, and then their status will also increase and will become more equal to men. Okay, so this is a process. Unlike in developed countries, you see that if equity approach, directly they want equal status, right? But in the developing countries, you will see that efficiency approach is more appropriate because they should start participating in economic process, in activity. Then only their status will also increase. At the same time, they can demand for equal, more equality with the men. Okay, so this is about it. Okay. Empowerment approach. Okay. So the word itself suggests that this particular approach talks about greater self-reliance. Okay, so it is more about the self-reliance. When a person is empowered, means that he or she can do anything that will be, what do you say, that will help in terms of growing their personalities and making things better around them, right? So empowerment approach is the most recent of the 5 approaches that we have, 4 approaches that we have discussed, and then aims to empower women through greater self-reliance. Okay, so now you'll see that startups, small startups, and then government is given funds like loans, sanctions loans to women in order to do their own small enterprises. Okay, so this empowerment approach definitely is one of the most, what do you say, used approach. When you look into any developing country like India also, you will find these approaches is very popular. It just includes women to take part in decision-making process. They are managing the entire show, from business, from doing research to mobilizing few women in order to help flourish the business, at the same time marketing it. Okay, so a small farmer, group of farmers can also do this. So how they are doing it? Because until and unless you give funds, you give money to them, they will not be able to do it, right? So now the government is using what approach? Empowerment approach, to make sure that women are taking part in decision-making process, and in turn helps in economic development. So self-reliance means self-employed. Now you can become an entrepreneur. So these days also, we are giving more emphasis on vocational training, technical training, at the same time organizing workshops, sensitizing people about different issues, or giving free education to women to take technical trainings. Many things are being opened up for women. Okay, so this is about empowerment approach. Okay, so it's mostly common in the third world countries. Okay, or the global south, whether it's Latin American countries, African countries, or South Asian countries. Okay, so this is all coming from the outcome of the neo-colonialism or the colonialism that happened. Okay, this is the, what do you say? Because earlier, when we look back into the history of India also, we were having enough resources, right? We were having lot of resources that could meet the needs of people. But then again, due to exploitation by colonial powers, again, we are left with nothing. Okay, so it's more like the effects of these oppressions have actually subjugated women, and they're now responding to it. Okay. Okay. Anything that you want to supplement? Anyone has anything to say? Okay. I'll end the session here. Okay. Anyone has any question? Online student?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Or what is it? Yes, ma'am. Okay.